want to wrap myself up in bubble wrap or anything, but sometimes I do feel like one of those dogs that could benefit from a little sweater, or maybe perhaps a thunder jacket. No. Hi, I'm Jordan. I have a neurological disorder that causes me to tick and seize on the daily, and I've learned something about myself. I really love a plan. I love predictability. Humans in general are very much creatures of habit, and I, as a creature myself, am no exception to this. Whenever plans change, I almost need a moment to process that change. Even if I don't have a problem with the change in plans, it's just that my brain needs a moment to... I just need a moment to reimagine things in my mind. But reality will almost always take us by surprise. Reality tells us that we can plan all we want, and life will do what it does best. Be unpredictable. As previously mentioned, I have a neurological disorder. It's called FND, functional neurological disorder, blah, 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 blah. I tick and seize, and the funding and research for this disorder is not to be found. So those of whom, like myself, living with this disorder are kind of left in the dark, living with a lot of unpredictability, if you will. And, we don't even really know what causes the disorder. The thing is, not knowing what causes the disorder will not change the fact that unpredictability is uncomfortable. It can make it hard to prepare yourself. It can make it hard to make plans, to be able to envision a scenario or situation and how it might play out can make you feel like you have more control over the situation than maybe you actually do. But the thing is, humans are actually kind of really bad at predicting how we'll react to certain situations. As the protagonist in your own life, you often take on the role of writing your own story. After all, you're the one who knows you best. So of course you're the one who's most fit to picture and write out the narrative of how your life will turn out. Perhaps you'd like to imagine you'll be brave in a situation that requires it, or calm and collected under pressure. But the truth is, you never really know how you're gonna react to a situation until you're in it. I'd like to think a decade into dealing with seizures that I've got this whole thing down pat. I'd like to say, if I feel something coming on, I know exactly how I'll react and I know exactly what I will do. But there's a cognitive dissonance there. I've been an adult for nearly a decade now. And what a decade that has been. I think so much of what has made life so especially difficult to bear is the unpredictability of it all. It's the last decade of expectation versus reality. Many young Americans, particularly those who grew up white and middle class, such as myself, can probably agree when I say that life has perhaps turned out less shored up than we were promised for it to be. Propagandized to believe is probably the better way to put that. The American dream, more like the American scheme, am I right, folks? Each day is a brand new uncharted mystery. But there's also that thing where history repeats itself, so I guess you could say that we are living in quote, unprecedented times, but is that even true? Why are some of these times that are so unprecedented able to be explained by history repeating itself? The COVID pandemic being a big one of those, if you recall. Ha ha ha. Those were some pretty gosh darn unprecedented times. Or were they? It's like, yeah, okay. At what point should we start to expect these times? When weird and crazy things are happening all the time, and yet we're still out here being like, oh my god, can you believe that crazy thing that Trump said? I'm like, yes, of course I can. Now, before we get too off topic, let me just go ahead and girl dinner. Now, before we get too off topic, let me just go ahead and draw this parallel and make it about myself. This phenomenon can apply to me in having seizures. Being that I have them on a very regular basis, seizures are like a day-to-day experience for me, not like it would be for an average person. I can sit here and recognize that it would be out of the ordinary for somebody to have a seizure, especially for the first time. And then for me, that's not the case, because I'm having them on a daily basis. So at what point do I stop acting surprised when I do seize? It never ceases to amaze me when a seizure does take me by surprise. As I mentioned, I'm not certain entirely exactly why it is that I do tick and seize. No one seems to completely understand why my body functions the way that it does. It just does. And still my days go on. I live my life, a very nice and fulfilling life, I might add, and yet unprecedented might seem fitting. After all, I've lived about 24 years of my life, give or take, without a disabling seizure disorder. So that would make these last 2 years and the small eras that led up to that now really stand out there as, say, hey, yo, I'm starting to think that something weird's going on. So how do I go about living my life with such a disrupting and disabling disorder? How do you plan your life when life has other plans? Hamilton-esque line right there, #deep. Having FND does not make me special. I'm being told now that I'm special for other reasons, thank God. Life is complex and challenging for every person on this planet in their own special way. After all is said and done, we are all susceptible to whimsies that come complimentary with the seat at the table that is life. #deep. My seizure disorder, however, does mean that there's an atypical level of uncertainty when it comes to planning my life. Learning to roll with the punches, literally sometimes, is seen as a remarkable trait of a well-adjusted person. And I am more or less adjusting okay. Some days are easier than others, but there's just always going to be that part of me that is challenged by not knowing what my body has in store for me. When the seizures first reappeared a couple of years ago, I did a lot more bubble wrapping with myself, a lot more hiding myself away than I do now. Understandably, I was terrified, and I just didn't understand what was going on. On top of that, I was fighting with myself about why it was even happening in the first place. How do I put this? Unlocked a new level of depression in the last couple of years. One that feels unearned is maybe the way to say it. In the last 2 years, I have had very short windows of remission. I had no seizures for about a month, I want to say in like June of 2024, and it's really strange. It's kind of like when you haven't heard any breaking news in a while, and instead of feeling relieved, you're consumed with questions. Like, oh my god, what's happening? What's gonna happen next? Are the bad times over? Was I actually making it all up the whole time? The whole time? Which is just not true. The world is a fucked up place. Just give it a minute. But also, like, completely understandable if, like, you would question your reality. Like, you just got used to this new kind of fucked up reality of having seizures every day, and now you're just back at it like it was nothing. Then there's the times where I'm doing quite well. You know, seizures now and then. But overall, I'm functional. I would feel like my, quote, normal self most of the time. This is the best that I can hope for right now. I've come to realize that month in 2024 was more of an anomaly rather than something to look forward to. Then there's the weeks to months at a time that I've experienced where I questioned how I could go on with the same level of functionality and independence that I was accustomed to. In those times, I did a lot of pushing myself to maintain that functionality and independence. Most definitely to the point of putting myself in danger. My reasoning was that I could do all of these things before, so there was no good reason as to why I couldn't do them now. I was just being dramatic or whatever with this whole seizure business. I just needed to get myself under control so that I could get back to my obligation. In the meantime, I told myself I really needed to watch where I was going and what I was signing myself up for. After all, I knew better than to sign myself up for things that I could put me in the position where I might let someone down. That was what was unacceptable to me, was that That is what was unacceptable to me, was letting someone down, not completely and totally ignoring my own needs. With each passing day, I came to realize that the life that I was living was no more. And I wondered, for how long was I gonna be vulnerable like this? I knew I couldn't fall back on my old habits, but I also didn't know what I should plan on being able to do in the years to come. After all, I didn't feel disabled all the time, because I'm not. I'm not existing in a constant state of functionality the way that I was accustomed to, which really messed with my brain and how I saw myself. We can get into the disastrous mind fuck that is imposter syndrome as a disabled person in another video, but I'll say this for now. I don't have an answer as to who I will be in 5 to 10 years, but I know for certain it's not who I was picturing just a few years ago. The life that I'm living today does not look how I ever imagined that it would. But also, maybe that's just how life goes. Fuck it. I guess I don't have a great piece of advice for this, because perhaps my wisdom is as limited as the amount of time that I've lived with this disorder, and also just the amount of time I've lived this life. I can hardly answer for the last 2 years of my life and how it is that I've been able to do all of the things that I have. I really can't say. They won't let me. I want to be able to be myself and do things how I want to do them. I want to have hopes and dreams and wishes and be able to make plans based off of those. Everyone should be able to do that. Like, everyone should be able to be their truest self regardless of disability or disorder. You just have to find out what that looks like for you. Luckily, there's no expiration on figuring that out, because that's kind of what life is all about. We're just figuring it out as we go, making it up along the way. Unfortunately, for these last few years, I've just felt so stuck, like I was marching in place, just keeping time. How do I live a life like this? How do you make promises when you're not even sure you're going to be able to keep them, even if that promise is only to yourself? I love a good dream. I've dreamed since I was a wee one that I wanted to be a pop star like Hannah Montana. In fact, somewhere on this fantastic website, there's a video of me rocking out at age 6 to Ultimate by Lindsay Lohan. And I'll say it, riveting performance, very energetic, that one. As I got a bit older and I heard about what the world had in store for me, all of the opportunities that lie ahead, and all that the world expected from me, I was told that yes, the world is a scary place. But as long as I followed the path that had been set for me, I'd be all right. I remember being giddy with the prospect of getting married and having babies and staying as close to my mom as possible. I love you, Mom, but we all know that this sort of sight on the world doesn't last forever. Eventually I grew up, as so many do, and started having my own thoughts and opinions, and I understood that the world maybe wasn't what I had been promised that it was. Yeah. When I turned 21, I went on a trip to visit my aunts in California. I remember sharing with them my newfound knowledge of who I really was and what I really wanted to do. I said, "Hey, look at me. I'm so woke. I'm gay." Like, the whole shebang, you know? And they reminded me of this little girl that they knew who once sang a very different tune. The whole get married and have babies, you know, it felt like a very... it felt like an alien part of me. It felt like someone else. At this point, I had thoroughly severed the connections with those expectations. And I was fed up with being told what I was going to do, and I only had one thing in my way. Senior year of college. I went to college for human biology. Well, I started out with a plan to go to physician's assistant school after I finished my bachelor's. That lasted all of 1 week when I found out that calculus sucks major ass and I think it should be illegal. I then changed my major to one that did not require calculus, but I kind of went along the same path and would still be good for me, nursing. Long story short, and a lot of major changes later, I ended up right where I started, and I was human biology. I was human biology degree. So, but I found myself at 20 years old, wondering how it was that I had already given up on this little girl inside me who once sang, "You're it. You're the ultimate you." And I realized somewhere along the way that I was living for other people. I was scared of my own desires. After much inner turmoil, I decided no, I wasn't going to give up on myself. I was gonna show myself what I could do. I was going to pursue a life in theater and perform. Now the only thing that was in my way was months and months and months of school, as I was way too far in to turn back. And also my nemesis, calculus. Don't worry, everybody. I passed my calculus class. Both 1 and 2. Yay! Just as I had promised to my parents, I finished my degree. And just as I had promised to myself, I would do nothing with it. Looking back on this decision, I feel immense pride for myself. I told myself that it was okay for me to change my mind, and it was such an act of respect towards myself, giving myself this opportunity. While it's definitely a different situation now, with the quote, changing my mind about what I have planned for my future here, being that it is a decision that was made, not by me. I have the disorder. I didn't choose this. So whilst these decisions were made under different requirements, I can still draw a lot of inspiration from my younger self. There was a bravery behind the young 20-something Jordan who realized she wasn't ready to give up before she had even tried. She knew there were still more stones yet to be turned over. Now I just needed to make sure I was turning over the right ones, right? I heard someone much wiser than me recently say, instead of worrying about making the right decision, make the decision right. Great. How do I do that? For me, there's a very difficult balance to strike when it comes to keeping myself safe, both mentally and physically, and doing whatever it is that I want to do regardless of my disability. I would love to say, fuck it, we ball. I can do whatever it is that I want to do, and the world just has to accommodate me because they should be accommodating to everybody, and everybody deserves respect and a seat at the table of life. Y'all holding your breath for the but. You're like, girl, where are you going with this? But that's just not how it works, unfortunately. It's just, there's more to this reality than just 2 middle fingers to our inaccessible society. I have a lot of notes about how our society could be more accessible, and most of them do not apply to me. A lot of the accommodations that I require are ones that I have to make. There are things that I can't expect other people to do, It just wouldn't be fair. Or would it? I knew that I needed to get more comfortable ticking in public. Listen, there is nothing comfortable about having a seizure. I'm grateful for the kisses that I get on my forehead from my sweetie darling partner, but not to brag, I can get those without seizing. There just really isn't anything that relieves the discomfort of your body jerking violently and uncontrollably, believe it or not. It's just how it is. It's uncomfortable. So yeah, there's the social comfortability aspect of it as to who it is that I am comfortable being around while having seizures, but there's also a physical risk involved. So when I make plans, I have to factor in a multitude of things. What are the plans? Where will I be? Who will be with me? How long will I be there? Is it going to be loud? I was supposed to go to a concert festival last fall, the When We Were Young festival in Las Vegas, and when I bought those tickets, I was being wildly optimistic about my functionality. I haven't been to a concert since my seizures returned, and if I was nervous about the plane ride to Vegas, there's no chance in hell that I can face the sensory experience that is a music festival. No. So there's that weighing of risk and reward, and that's changed a lot for me. over the last 2 years. Like, yes, of course, I'm so glad that I got to see your 3-hour play with no intermission. You know, it's just a shame that the whole time I fought hitting my head on the booth behind me the whole time, you know, but you know, those are spoons I'll never get back. So it's a trade-off, you see? Like, I want to be able to show up for people the way that I want to show up for them, and I want to be able to make plans the way that I want to be able to make plans. I don't want to sit at home and do nothing as much as possible. Like, if I want to sit at home and do nothing, I want it to be because I want to sit at home and do nothing. I want it to be my choice. I don't want it to be because I'm scared. I'd like to make a whole video on the accommodations I make for myself and all the things that I found that work for me. I feel like that deserves its own time. So to begin to wrap up, I'll say, I think my takeaway is that yes, absolutely, you can be whoever it is that you want to be, and you can do whatever it is that you want to do. You should give yourself the opportunity to live your life as the best, most authentic person that you can be as possible as possible. The most important consideration in deciding who that person is you. So go ahead and make those plans, but make them for you. Make it work for you, however that looks like. This doesn't mean bubble wrapping yourself up or pushing people aside and disregarding them. At the end of the day, neither of those extremes are actually doing you any good. Like the plague of protecting your peace that's going on right now, the weaponization of therapy language to where we just actually don't genuinely care for those in our community, and we're so turned off by the fact that we could possibly be inconvenienced by those in our community to where we just fucking you're gonna be inconvenienced sometimes to have people around you. That's just the way that it is. You're going to be an inconvenience to someone sometimes. That's the way that it is. That's the way these things work. That's the way our society functions. And I think it matters more so that you're doing things for the right reasons, and underneath it's fueled by a genuine, I don't know, like to just genuinely like be a fucking good person and care about other people, I guess. But mostly what I guess I want to focus on is like making sure you also care about yourself. What I'm rambling on to say here is building your life with intentionality towards your strongest strengths and truest desires. It means, you know what I'm trying to say? Do you know what I'm trying to say? I don't know if you know what I'm trying to say. It means building your life intentionally with your strongest strengths and your truest desires as your guideposts. Like, I may at one point have been a huge fan of the nastiest bass-boosted dubstep that mankind has ever known, but I know my mind has changed, my body has changed. Loud noises, and especially bass, is something that I've noticed really bothers my F&D and can make me tick and can make me seize. So I still have a special place in my heart for it. I just need to adjust what appreciating dubstep looks like for me. You know? I can still appreciate dubstep, just in my own special way. Ooh. So I could maintain my white-knuckled grip on, the person who I said I would be, or, what I had promised myself I would become. But, like, why? Why? When the game has changed, why am I still trying to play by those outdated rules? There is an honor to making a promise and keeping it. There is dignity to be found in pushing yourself to show up in the ways in which you said that you would. But truly, it's okay that you're not who you said that you were, and it's okay if you no longer want the things that you said you did. But it's also so dope to do things to keep those promises. Like, look into accommodations so that you can keep headbanging to Skrillex if that's still who you are, and just be sure that's you. And be good. And if you cannot be good, be careful. Okay. Good night. Not a threat. Good night.